Happy Apple Core Homestead. I actually have 2 full crates from my apple tree. So we're going to be doing applesauce today, and then my next video I'll show you how to dehydrate them and make apple chips. This is going to be the easiest applesauce recipe I hope you've ever seen. I hope it encourages you that canning can be simple and it can be fun. First things first, we're just going to get these apples scrubbed up and we're going to keep them whole. Okay, we're back from washing. As you can see, I didn't even use half of what's in here, and I have a whole secondary full crate. So we have a lot of work to do. For now though, we're just going to concentrate on these 2 pots. They've been washed, any blemishes on the skin have been removed. Other than that, they're completely whole. I'm going to put just a small amount of water on the bottom, just enough to cover the bottom so that the apples don't burn. Then we're going to pop it on the stove on a kind of a medium heat, I would say. And you want that steam to come up, so that's why I've got lids on. We want the steam to come up. We're going to cook it for 10 minutes just on medium. What we want to see is we want these apples to get soft and the skins to split. I forgot to tell you something. You can see that they're over there on the stove getting heated up, but something super important that you want to do before you put them on the stove is weigh them. I have 14 pounds, 1 ounce worth of full apples. And the reason why it's so important to weigh them is so you know how much lemon juice to put in later on. So put that in your notes. Make sure after you wash them, you weigh them. Okay, be back in a bit. It's been 25 minutes. I've been checking it every 10 minutes just to see how they're doing. But as you can see, the skins have split and they are a bit softer now. And so we're going to take them over to the counter and go on to the next step. In front of us here we have a KitchenAid machine, and this is the fruit and vegetable attachment. This is what I'm going to use to remove the stems and the seeds and the skin from the apples. I left the skins on specifically because I want the nutrients from the apple skins into my applesauce. Also, it really does give it a very pretty color. If you do not have a KitchenAid attachment, then one of these will work great and do the same job. Alright, well, let's get started. We're going to, now also, if I had a second set of hands here, I would have them already working on a second batch, getting them washed up and ready to go. But since I don't, we're just going to do this one batch, and I'll work on the other batches later. And all there is to it is I'm going to put the apples right into the strainer, and I'm going to turn it on so it might get a little noisy. But I want you to see what it looks like when the juice comes out here and all of the pulp goes out here. And the pulp can be given to the chickens. All right, here we go. So now you can see that all of the sauce is coming out this side into my bowl, and on this side in this bowl are all of the skins and the seeds and the stems. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these done, and I'll see you in a minute. All of the apples have been sauced. So what we're going to do next is we're going to pour the sauce right back in to the pot. Just like so. Oh goodness, it's heavy. And we're going to bring it back up to a simmer. I have my canner heating up. We're going to do pints, and it requires a lot of water. And it's going to take a really long time on my stove to heat it up. So while this is going back to a simmer, that will be heating, and I will check back with you after that. Now that you have your applesauce on the stove and it's coming back to a simmer, this is the time to add your lemon juice and then taste it to see if you need to add any honey. I've got 14 pounds, just over 14 pounds of apples, and I'm going to go ahead and round up to 5 tablespoons of lemon juice. Then I'll give that a good stir and I'll taste it. At this point too, you can start putting in, your cinnamon or whatever kind of spice you like. I make mine plain so that way whatever, we're feeling like in the moment we can put on after we open the jar. Okay, on the second taste, it doesn't taste as much like lemon as it did. So I'm gonna leave it because the last thing I want is for it to be too sweet. When I open the jar, I can always add some honey to it. But if it's already too sweet, then there's not really much you can do. Well, unless you want to add more lemon juice, maybe? Ew. So now that I've got my flavors in, I've got my acid in, I'm just gonna bring that up really quick to just a simmer. That'll only take like maybe a minute. While I clean up and get my lids washed. Everything else is already ready to go. My jars and my rings are ready, but my lids I haven't washed yet. So I'll do that right now. All right, the lids are clean. Now it's time to fill the jars. I use a funnel because it's convenient and a ladle. You're gonna wanna fill this jar to about 1/2 inch to the top. You wanna leave a little bit of headspace. And headspace is the air between the top of the food and the top of the rim. All right, once you have that filled up, you take this tool here. The sharp end here is used to remove the bubbles. Just like so. Just stir it around the outside edge and maybe once or twice through the middle. This end here is a magnet that you can easily grab the top of your lid. But before you put your lid on, take a paper towel or a cloth and wipe the rim of your jar. Even if you can't really see and you're like, oh, it's clean, check that out. Can you see that? It was wet and I couldn't even tell by looking at it. And if we leave food on the rim, it will cause the seal to not be tight, and then your food can spoil. So let's avoid that with this simple step. All right, after you clean it, pop your lid on, grab a ring, and then just put it finger tight. And there you go. The canner is full. I'm doing pints. I cannot double decker this, so this is as far as we can go. The water is 1 inch at least above the top of the jars. I do have some more applesauce to can, and I'll just keep that on a low heat until this batch is done. So I've got the temperature up on high heat all the way to the top, and when this gets to a rolling boil, we will start our timer for 15 minutes. If your elevation is above 1,000 feet, you'll need to add time to that. Please refer to your recipe or your canning guide to get the correct time. As I'm sure you've noticed today, or if you've seen any of my other videos, I have an affinity for using my pressure canner as a water bath. That is totally not necessary. A large pot like this one with a lid will do just fine, as long as you have a rack to put on the bottom. I do have a water canner. I think I will bust it out one of these days, just so it can get some use in my kitchen. You don't have to put your lid on all the way if you're using your pressure canner. You can leave it askew if you want to. You can even take off your pressure gauge. I don't do either. I actually put the lid all the way on and I leave my pressure gauge on. I do not put the rocker on. The rocker is what normally goes here when you're pressure canning, and it is off right now, and I will leave it off. Once this gets to a full rolling boil, we'll start our timer for 15 minutes. Timer just went off. And because I still have applesauce on the back burner, I'm going to move this over here to a metal hot plate on my tile counter. And turn the heat off. Okay, the reason I didn't move it over here is because I need a little bit of room to work with the applesauce that still has to go into more jars for the second batch in the canner. I'm going to let this cool down at least for 10 minutes, maybe a half an hour. before I open it, and then transfer the jars to a towel on the counter where they will sit for the next 24 hours. Hi. This is cooled enough, I think, to open it. It's going to be super hot, so key thing is use your hot pads and make sure you open the lid up and away from your face. So hopefully you can see this, but I think you know what I mean. So just open it up from the back, let that steam out, and away from your face. That's it. We're just going to take all 8 of our jars out of the canner, put them onto the towel, and they're going to sit there for the next 12 to 24 hours. For me, it's going to be more like 24 hours because I have a whole nother batch of this to do tomorrow, maybe 2 batches. I don't know. So I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Bye! Whew, the applesauce has been completed. We finished the entire crate, the one crate. We still have one left over to do the dehydrated apples, and I'll show you that later. Anyway, we got 16 pints of applesauce and 18 half pints. And all we need to do now is check the tops and make sure that the lids are sucked down and not making any popping sound when you press on the top. Then you want to take your ring off, take a wet rag, and just clean it up. The purpose of this is, number one, so you don't have sticky mess all over and your ring can come on and off easily, and also so food doesn't mold and get nasty around there. It's just not appetizing, and then you'll just wonder, is my food safe, is it not? Anyway, perfect to start out with just a clean slate, and it's worth the couple of extra seconds just to wipe them down. Once you've done that, you get to decide, are you going to store them with the ring on or off? I prefer to store them with the ring on. That way, if I'm gifting them or, you know, I just don't have an extra ring handy, I can easily just pop my jar open without any fuss. Some jars don't stack well. Pints with the lids on stack great, but jelly jars do not. So I store my jelly jars with the rings off. Then you're going to want to put the date that you canned them on the top. I promise you'll forget when you can these, and also if you sell them or gift them, your customers or family will want to know when you canned them, and they won't keep track of when you gave it to them, I promise. Next thing, I like to use these dissolvable labels, especially if I'm going to be putting them on the front of the jar. If you're putting your label on the lid, it really doesn't matter because the lids are one-time use only. They will be thrown away after you open your jar or after you're done eating the food. The jar, however, you want to keep that, so don't throw it in your recycle. If you're not a canner yourself, save up your jars and please gift them to the canner in your life. They will be much appreciative. And the ring too. Keep the ring and the jar, throw the lid away. All right, back to the labels. The dissolvable labels are amazing if you're going to put your label on the front of the jar, which is nice. When you stack this in your pantry, you're not going to be able to tell what's inside of it if your label's on the top. And some things are the same color. For example, I made quite a bit of jams, jellies, and butters. They have different textures, but they're all the same color. It's nice to have a label on the front to see what's going on. And this just washes right off. There's no picking or peeling, and you don't have to use Goo Gone to get it off or some weird chemical. It just comes right off in the water. Okay, that's applesauce. If you have any questions, pop me a comment down below, and I promise to respond. Thank you for making applesauce with me, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!